You won't believe what happened when my fiancé tried to unlock the door to our lake cabin last weekend. What should have been a simple, peaceful weekend getaway turned into a wild confrontation with our neighborhood's HOA Karen. She saw my fiancé at the door, but instead of just letting us in, she called the cops on us right there, in front of everyone. At first, we had no idea why she was so upset or why she acted like we were trespassing. The tension grew fast. The whole situation started feeling like something out of a bad drama. But here's the twist. When my fiancé calmly pulled out the deed to the cabin, something unexpected happened. The look on Karen's face completely changed. Suddenly, all her confidence vanished, and she froze. It was as if she hadn't counted on us having proof that this cabin was rightfully ours. The scene was intense, and for a moment, no one knew what was going to happen next. You could feel the tension hanging in the air. With neighbors watching, cops on standby, and Karen struggling to figure out what to do. This story isn't just about a dispute over a property. It's about how far some people will go to challenge you over something you've worked hard for, and what happens when the truth comes out. We didn't expect the whole neighborhood drama to explode just because we showed up at our own cabin. It raised so many questions about how HOA rules work, what your rights really are, and why some people seem obsessed with control. Stick around, because this is only the beginning. The way this story unfolded had us on edge, and what happened next? Well, that's something you'll want to hear. Trust me, you won't want to miss the next part where things take an even crazier turn. Before all the chaos at the cabin, things seemed pretty straightforward. My fiancé and I had been dreaming about owning this little lake cabin for years. We finally found the perfect spot, quiet, peaceful, and just far enough away from the noise of the city. The paperwork was all in order. The deed was in our names, and we were excited to start making memories there. We knew the area had an active HOA, but we thought they'd just be the usual neighborhood group. Nothing too strict or overbearing. We were wrong. The HOA had a reputation for being extra strict. Lots of rules about what you could and couldn't do on your property, from how your lawn looked to what colors you could paint your cabin. But until that day, we'd never had any direct run-ins. That's why when Karen saw my fiancé at the cabin door and immediately jumped to call the cops, it caught us completely off guard. It felt like she was waiting for us to show up, like she wanted to start trouble. What made it even stranger was how quickly Karen acted like we were trespassers, even though the deed clearly showed we owned the cabin. It was like she didn't want to believe it, or maybe she had some reason to doubt our ownership. Maybe there was some old drama or dispute we didn't know about. The neighborhood buzzed with rumors about past fights, boundary issues, and power struggles, but nothing that involved us. Till now, as the cops arrived and Karen stood frozen. The weight of the situation hit me. This wasn't just about a property line or a simple misunderstanding. There was something deeper, something personal. Why was she so desperate to keep us out? What would happen when more neighbors got involved? We were caught in the middle of a tension that felt bigger than just our little cabin by the lake. The night was far from over, and the quiet getaway we hoped for was quickly slipping away. The questions kept piling up, and none of the answers seemed simple. What would Karen do next? How would this fight shape our future at the cabin? The story was just getting started, and the next moments were going to be intense. After that tense moment with Karen frozen in place, things didn't calm down. The police officers stayed nearby, clearly unsure about what to do next. Meanwhile, neighbors started to gather, whispering to each other, casting curious and not always friendly looks our way. It felt like suddenly we were on the center stage of a neighborhood drama none of us had signed up for. As we stood there, holding the deed, trying to explain calmly that this was our property, Karen kept insisting that there was some kind of violation. something that made our ownership invalid. But she never really explained what she meant, just repeated her claims like a broken record. It was strange, almost like she had a personal vendetta or a grudge we didn't understand yet. The whole thing was frustrating and confusing. What made it worse was that the HOA rules were complicated and, honestly, hard to follow without spending hours digging through the documents. We later learned that Karen was part of the HOA board, giving her some authority. But it wasn't clear if she was using that power fairly or just to intimidate others. Some neighbors whispered that she had clashed with other cabin owners before, and some even said she tried to control who could enjoy their own property. On our side, we were caught off guard by how much influence the HOA had. We had thought this was our peaceful spot, away from the city's noise and drama. But apparently, there was a whole different kind of control here. There were rumors of secret meetings, backdoor deals, and long-standing disputes over boundaries and access rights. We had no idea we were stepping into a complicated web. My fiancée felt shaken but determined. She kept trying to get Karen to explain what the real problem was, but Karen just kept shutting down, refusing to give clear answers. The police eventually said they couldn't make a decision on property rights. That was for the courts. But Karen wasn't ready to let it go. As the sun started to set, the mood grew heavier. Questions raced through my mind. Why was Karen so invested in this fight? Were there deeper reasons behind her actions? Most importantly, how far was she willing to go to keep us out of the cabin we legally owned? The answers weren't coming anytime soon, and the tension felt like it was only building. We were caught in a battle that was bigger than just a dispute over a lake cabin. And none of us knew what the next day would bring. As the days passed, the tension around our lake cabin only grew thicker. Karen didn't back down, in fact. She seemed to dig in deeper, rallying a few other HOA members who had their own reasons for wanting us out. Every time we tried to enjoy the peaceful quiet of the lake, it felt like eyes were on us, waiting for any misstep. The friendly neighborhood vibe we had hoped for was replaced by cold stares and whispered warnings. It was as if we were outsiders. In a place we legally owned, we tried to keep calm and gather more information, but every conversation led to dead ends or vague threats. Karen kept sending messages about supposed violations we hadn't even heard of, rules about parking, landscaping, even noise. Some of them seemed petty, others outright confusing. We reached out to the HOA board, hoping for clarity, but the responses were slow and never fully answered our questions. The mystery around Karen's aggressive behavior only deepened. Why? Was she so desperate to push us out? Was there something she didn't want us to find out? One afternoon, my fiancé noticed new no trespassing signs mysteriously popping up around the cabin property. It was a bold move, almost like a challenge, as if Karen was trying to claim control even without legal grounds. We felt trapped, stuck in a game where the rules kept changing and the referee was nowhere to be found. Then came the day when Karen showed up again, this time with more people. They blocked the driveway, making it impossible for us to park or unload our things. The air was thick with hostility. Words were exchanged, voices raised, and it felt like the whole neighborhood was watching, waiting for the next move. We were outnumbered and outmaneuvered, but we refused to give up, with the police unwilling to intervene further and the HOA seemingly against us. The pressure was crushing. Every moment felt like it was building toward something inevitable, something that could change everything. Our fight for the cabin had turned into a battle for our rights, our peace, and our future. What would happen next? Would we finally stand our ground? Or would Karen's push for control win out? The answer was close. But the tension had reached its peak, leaving us and everyone watching on the edge of their seats. Just when we thought things couldn't get any more intense, a new shock threw everything into chaos. One evening, as we were reviewing the deed and trying to prepare for what felt like an inevitable showdown, my fiancé discovered something. Strange, buried deep in the property records, hidden clause that neither of us had been told about. It wasn't just a simple rule or restriction. It was something that could change the entire game. Apparently, there was an old easement agreement from decades ago, giving the HOA or maybe even Karen personally some kind of limited access rights to the land. This revelation flipped our understanding upside down. Suddenly, Karen's aggressive behavior made more sense, but it also raised new questions. Was she using that clause to justify everything? Was that why she had been so determined to block us and call the cops? We had never been told about this when we bought the cabin, and it felt like a secret weapon waiting to be unleashed. We decided to dig deeper, reaching out to a local real estate lawyer to understand what this easement actually meant. The lawyer's words were chilling. It might not just affect how we use the property, but could even put our ownership at risk if certain conditions weren't met. We were caught in a legal web that no one had warned us about. Meanwhile, Karen didn't waste any time. The very next day, she showed up again, this time with official-looking documents that she claimed supported her claims. Her confidence was back, but now it was clear she had a plan. The neighborhood's whispers grew louder, and some neighbors, who had stayed neutral before, seemed to be picking sides. The peaceful lake cabin, what we had dreamed about, was turning into a battlefield. The stakes were higher than ever, just about access or parking anymore, but about who truly had control over this land. With hidden rules, secret agreements, and an HOA that seemed ready to fight dirty, the conflict was spiraling fast. We knew the climax was coming, and when it did, it would change everything. The question was, were we prepared for what lay ahead? The day of confrontation finally arrived. We gathered every piece of paperwork we could find, the deed, the easement, documents, and the legal advice from our lawyer. Karen showed up again, this time with a small crowd of HOA members ready to make their case. The tension was thick. Every eye locked on us as we stood firm at the cabin entrance. When Karen began to recite her claims, we calmly presented our evidence showing that while the easement gave limited access rights, it did not strip us of ownership or the right to use our cabin. The lawyer's words echoed in my mind, giving us confidence as we stood our ground. What happened next surprised everyone. As Karen listened, her confident demeanor started to crumble. Then, a voice came from the crowd, one of the neighbors stepped forward, revealing that Karen had previously violated several HOA rules herself. This neighbor had documented it all and threatened to expose Karen's hypocrisy if she continued her campaign against us. The balance shifted instantly. Karen's arguments fell flat, and she quickly retreated, her control slipping away. But just when it seemed the battle was won, another twist hit us hard. The lawyer called to say there was an unrecorded lien on the property from years ago, something neither we nor the HOA had known about. This lien meant the cabin could be at risk of foreclosure if it wasn't resolved quickly. Our relief was short-lived. Our fight was far from over. We realized this wasn't just about Karen or the HOA anymore. It was a bigger fight to protect our home, our future. We had faced off against an overbearing HOA, uncovered secrets, and stood up for our rights. But now a new challenge loomed in the shadows. The lake cabin, once our dream escape, had become the center of a battle we didn't expect, but we weren't backing down. The next chapter was uncertain, but one thing was clear. This fight was about more than property. It was about standing up for what's yours, no matter how deep the struggle goes.